Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. I'm enjoying the frog talk. Nice frogs we have here. In Canada, winter comes, which is now, and then everything goes quiet. All the songbirds go south. Some birds stay, but very few. So all the migratory birds go south, robins and so on. The land freezes, ice and snow, and there's no smell. There isn't the smell of earth or water. So it's a very, very good environment for meditation if you don't mind the cold. But we do have heating. But then in April and May, the place goes crazy. Because we have a lot of water. We have 160 acres, and I'm sure a third of that is wetland. So that's like 50 acres of wetland marshes and beaver ponds. So that's a lot of water, a lot of frogs, and a lot of mosquitoes. So in May, the first birds come from the south. They're usually red-winged blackbirds, so you hear them. Oh, or the geese start flying over, the big Canada geese flocks of like 200 flying really, really high. It's really quite exciting. And then the first frogs start, and they just go nuts. It's just beep, beep all night long. But then the mosquitoes come, and we have mosquitoes this big. We have big mosquitoes and a lot. So it's the forest is not a place you stop. You keep moving. And in the forest, the mosquitoes are worse than out in the open spaces. But you couldn't really meditate outside. You'd need mosquito nets. So the monks quite often will wear a mosquito veil over the heads as they go to their kutis. You don't need outside. So it's a pretty tough environment to survive. But I'm Canadian, so I get used to it. I should go to these questions. Well, I just wanted to compliment everyone. It's really inspiring to see how diligent you're practicing. So sadhu, well done. You know, we as Kalyanamitta, we inspire each other. So when I see you practice diligently, I practice more diligently. And we don't have to say much. You just say, oh yeah, this is the work. So well done, well done. Which one should I start? Luangpor, I have a question for you. It's about foreground and background. Sometimes thinking mind tends to separate those two. But once the background, i.e. awareness, is open, welcoming, accepting what's in the foreground, then they become silence, awareness. Would you please talk about this, not to think as they are dual? Very good question, because this model is just a metaphor that falls apart once your mind is silent, because you cannot find a background. It's like Luangpor Sumedho's reading. You can't say that awareness is a thing as a frog is a thing or a clock is a thing. So you that's always the difficulty with language. In the end, Benyang Niang, that's all you say. But the reason I use that is to somehow get people in the territory of awareness as their foundation. And then I use this foreground background. But when you really just observe, I can't find a background as a thing. I can't say it's separate from sounds and feelings. I can't say it's the same. I could say that everything is made of consciousness, but that would be getting into metaphysics and things like that. But I think the whole idea of this is to go beyond thought. So once your mind is silent, then the trust in the silent mind is the practice. And then doubts will come up. Don't go there. Just see what happens when you're silent for long periods of time. And that in itself is quite a thing, isn't it? Just to be silent. So it's a model that no models are absolute, but it's a model to try to help us um, point to a different way of functioning and a different way of looking. But it's true, isn't it? Like if am I just sitting here? There's no thinking. I cannot find a background and a foreground. It's just tattva, suchness. It's just like that. And it's a mystery, really. It's a mystery. So then within that, things come up, we respond. Someone is hurt, we respond with compassion. We're available to do what we have to do. But just to abide as silence and then not have to figure it out or not have to discover something else or do something. And that's the subtlety of bhava and vibhava, always this restlessness, needing to do or to whatever. So to this person's question, I mean, it's an important question. Yeah. So it's kind of like a raft. You use the raft to get to the other shore, but then you don't have to carry the raft around. Or a pair of crutches. You use the crutches, but when you don't need them, you don't need them. When we're listening to sound as foreground, it seems like we put the mind out to the object. Please give more explanation. Yeah, it could seem that way. Well, all I'm just saying is just be aware. And then so I say, well, localize your attention on sound, but let your awareness be receptive rather than concentrated. That's what I'm pointing to. Because a lot of people, they their perception of meditation and their way of meditation is to concentrate on an object. Look at that and focus on that. And then, okay, you can do that. I don't. I do this kind of open awareness. So that's what I'm trying to indicate. Both are okay. Both are okay. Um, so if I were to listen to the loudest sound, say, what's the loudest sound in the room? Then my mind would be going out and trying to find. But if I just say generally, there is sound, there is listening, and I'm making no preference. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just allowing this experience to be as it is. I don't even have to choose sound. I just very relaxed, abiding as awareness, and then Benyang. I think the reason I do that is because I have seen so many people, they have the idea that meditation is concentrate. Yeah, recently I've had quite a few people from Sri Lanka coming and telling me, I can't meditate. I can't get rid of thinking. I try to concentrate on the breath and I just can't get rid of thinking. I say, you got it all wrong. You go crazy. And they've given up on meditation. So their perception was, okay, you do anapanasati and you do it really, really strong. You let no thoughts come in. Of course, they fail totally. And then they feel, well, they feel hopeless. Where I said, no, just try another way. And so I talk in this way about that. Which isn't to say that some people cannot do that. Some can, but it seems to be a minority. For most of us, it just seems, like you feel like a failure. But if that's the only model there is, but in this kind of idea, background, foreground, if your attention is always on a sankhara, on the sankata, on the constructed, how can you realize the unconstructed? It's always been like a logical fallacy for me. How can I realize the tasteless by always be focused on taste? or the sound less by always be focused on sound. So my logical conclusion was, well, there must be a different way of relating to sense experience. And then when my teachers, Luangpor Viradhammo especially, Luangpor Cha, no, it's kind of open Yang. So I just use sound as a kind of light anchoring, shall we say, rather than a hard focus. This is the same person. This is the 6 days of the retreat. I still have a lot of thinking. Walking and sitting, it's the same. It's not cooling down yet. No peace! Exclamation mark. What should I do? Or thinking is the activity of the mind, should be accepted and be with it. Well, if you really understood that, you'd have no problem. You might say it after 6 days, but you haven't really realized that. So not that I'm blaming you. This is a common problem. But if you really thought that thinking is the activity of mind, I should be accepted and be with it, you wouldn't be asking the former question. Sorry, what? Okay, so I would say, the problem is trying to get rid of thought usually, and then also believing in the whole thinking process. I would say just use the end of the out breath for the rest of the retreat. For the rest of the retreat, just whenever you can, notice the end of the out breath. When does the out breath end? Make it very simple. And if it doesn't work, you can write me a note. This doesn't work. Because there's no guarantee. The end of the out breath is very interesting because that's usually where thinking starts if you're doing anapanasati. So when you relax and you let go and mind spins away. So you do something quite, and just a place to note the realness of experience. The breath is a real experience going on now. It has, it's modulated, it has depth, and it has cycles and beginning and ending and so on. So you choose one bit of it and just to say, well, where's the end of the out breath? And you just keep noting that, and that takes you to the present moment. Which isn't like, I have to look at the end of the out breath to get rid of thought. Then you're going to get a stomach ache. That's not it. It's not like to get rid of anything. It's just noting reality. Just noting, oh, end of out breath is like this. Then if you can notice when you notice that, there's no thought. For me to notice sound, I can't be thinking. Two can't go together. If I already notice sound, sounds like this. Oh, there's no thought. But if I try to listen to sound in order to get rid of thought, I'm not really listening to sound. I'm just tense and trying to get rid of thought. Well, that's not listening. So pure listening or pure awareness is receptive. And the out breath is, just feel it. It's like that. To do that, you can't be doing two things at once. You're thinking or feeling, right? So you just say, okay, for 4 days. How boring, huh? But it isn't actually. It's an interesting experiment because there's nothing you have to figure out. It's not like rocket science. It's just a simple intention to be aware throughout the day at the end of the out breath. And, the thing is, you'll forget for 4 hours or 1 hour, 2 hours, or half an hour, whatever. So it's the remembering. It's remembering, oh, out breath feels like that. But, I would say the problem is trying to get rid of thinking. And that's a common problem. Acceptance, the last sentence, perfect. Thinking is the activity of the mind, should be accepted and be with it. Yeah, so go for it. But avijja is such that it's, ignorance fools us. Even though we understand the theory, the underlying kind of drive of tanha quite often deludes us. Even though I think all of us have seen, you get an insight about your own character, right? You understand where the attachment is, and like 3 days later, you're caught up again into the same thing. So you have to accept that avijja is a powerful force in all of us. Ignorance, ego, tanha, and you just have to remember again. It's like you're coming out of a well and you're a frog, something like that. So you have to be very kind, very patient. And then it just, I guess, takes time, huh? Just you keep at it. So that's that. And then there's this. If one tends to be overly focused, very determined, and have strong willpower in doing things, including meditation, resulting in stress and tension, especially physical tension that builds up and lasts and automatically is strengthened as one starts to meditate or do things. How do we can soften this habits of overly focused and being determined? Whoa, I don't know. Um, I was asking Reborn, what do we do with this one? He's my consultant. Because I was overly intense, very, very intense. Um, Pit Pen Crew, mistake is teacher. Like because all of us are hopefully we're aware over a span of time, and we're watching cause and effect. Right? Anything you do, whether you're cooking or um, making a cup of tea or meditating, cause and effect, cause and effect. Um, so in an ideal world, this person would notice what? Notice the type of thinking mind that is driven by overly focused, overly determined, strong willpower. The strong willpower would give a certain type of thinking, right? As opposed to a choi choi mindset, which would give a different type of thinking. Choi choi means que sera, sera. It doesn't matter or whatever. So each mood creates a certain pattern of thinking. Worry creates a worried pattern of thinking. Inspiration creates obviously, right? But quite often we just believe in the thought pattern. So in meditation in general, the the thought patterns are symptomatic of underlying mood. If I just believe in the thought patterns, then the mood drives the thoughts drive the mood, and I'm in a closed feedback kind of circle. So if worry comes up as a habit, and then I think worried thoughts, then I feed the worry. So it's a closed loop, and it's a disaster, right? So how do I break out? I say, oh, this type of thinking is worry. So suddenly I become objective, or this type of thinking is willful. Now, I don't know what that would be in terms of the person's mind, but there should be some thinking patterns which are willful. So if you just start to diagnose what actually is it mean to be willful rather than just you feel tense. Those are the latter symptoms of doing that. But what is that mood about? So this is called Dhamma Vijaya. You're investigating the Dharma of your own conditioning around this particular pattern. So it's not a judgment of it. It's not trying to get rid of it. It's just trying to understand it. And that's an act of compassion. It is an act of kind of generosity. Oh, okay, so there is this. How does it work? Hopefully then that whole way of functioning, goal oriented or whatever, you start to get more insight into the body patterns. What is it really like? What is the body doing before it gets so stressed out? What is stress? Where is it in the body? So first of all, you have the thinking pattern driven by the mood. Now the thinking pattern is kind of diagnostic. It's telling you, no, what's the mood? So you go behind the thinking pattern and you see the mood, the aramana, or like Luangpor Cha would say, stop arom. Is that right? Stop arom, like check out the mood of the mind. And then you're more objective. And then you see, oh, what is this mood? And then you see it going to thoughts and you say, no, what is it like in the body? What do my eyes feel like? What do my temples feel like? What does my throat feel like? So you're getting more and more educated, kind of, to this particular mood, and you're willing to do this for 10 years. This isn't going to end on a 10-day retreat. Sorry, if it does, I'll take teaching from you because it doesn't work that way. It's just powerful. These are powerful things. So, so you see, it's always like awakening and then watching and observing and cause and effect. Then what the person could do is like do 100 push-ups before you meditate. Okay, 95. Yeah, do something vigorous. If you're really intense, do something intense. Jump up and down 100 times or whatever. Not in here. Or, whatever. And then do yoga nidra. I think that would be an interesting experiment because yoga nidra for someone who's intense must be very difficult. What are you going to do? Lie there and be intense? So you do some. I'm just playing around with ideas, right? But quite often you take the very thing that's sort of hassling you and you use it. So you do something very intensely. Okay, so I say 100 push-ups and kind of use up, I guess, burn up some of that energy, and then don't meditate. Like whatever you define as whatever has been defined as meditation has unfortunately the link to stress. So whatever way this person perceived meditation, it has become now conjoined with wrong effort, unfortunately. So now, just the word meditation. So don't meditate, right? And can you not meditate and just sit and listen to the river? Can you listen to the river intensely? I guess you could. I'm going to really listen. I'm just going to be relaxed and listen now. But whatever has been defined as meditation is a wrong definition, is michaditi, is micha sankappa, is wrong effort, etc., etc. So you have to back away from all ideas of meditation and do something like sit by the river, drink a cup of tea, um, and just allow that to take place. Maybe that's very difficult to do because of the intensity, but at least you're starting to deprogram the way the jitta is working. And then, the stress can come again. It might come from childhood or hormones. It comes from all kinds of places. Um, so there's the kind of, first of all, the thinking pattern. All moods have thinking patterns because that's how we attach to them. The thinking pattern is the diagnostic tool to go back and say, this is a feeling of stress or this is worry. So you go back, and then as you look at the aramana, the mood, you say, oh, stress feels this way. And then you feel the body. And from feeling the body, you might feel the tension in the jaw. So it's very good in dealing with these kinds of things is yoga nidra with that type of body meditation I suggested, especially the face. So everything in the body actually. So you lay down or you do sitting, but so let's say if you do yoga nidra, you lay down and you make conscious, just like your mouth, and you could see that your jaw will be full of stress. If you just let it become conscious, you see, oh, it's really stressed. It's really stressed. And then you just observe. And then you go to your eyes and you see, oh, feel the temples. There's a lot there. And you just, slowly all that unravels. And you'd feel your throat is very tight. You'd feel your shoulders are tight. So you do a body meditation, not like the focusing on an object, not the concentration type, but the more like localized attention and letting the eyes become. The eyes are very interesting around stress because a lot of our life is visually oriented. We're looking at like computers and thinking. A lot of it is in the eyes. So just letting the feelings in the eyes become conscious. Just that. It's a kind of really interesting meditation. You learn a lot that way. So that would be, if the person could do yoga nidra, but they'd probably again have to do 200 push-ups before before they, I don't know, or something physical first, and then lay down and try that. I think the one of the eye meditations I sometimes give is, first of all, you imagine that your eye sockets, the bony parts, are as big as, like, those big sunglasses we had as kids. Did you ever have those? Kids wear these massive sunglasses. You imagine that your eye socket is that big. Huh? That helps. So it's all, it's relaxing. And then you know what a slinky is? A slinky is a spring-like toy that just walks down the stairs by itself. So you imagine your eyeballs are on the end of a slinky. They just go out. So, because there's so much tension up there. Then you go to the, like with the thinking mind, there's a lot of stress in the brain. Thinking creates tension in the brain. So you go to that. You feel the tension in the temples and inside. And then you see, can you bring your attention down through the throat? And your throat starts to maybe yawn. And you find, oh, wow, I'm breathing now. And you go down here. So those are all really good exercises around too much thought, because you're not trying to get rid of thought. You're just saying, oh, okay, there is thinking. Well, how does it affect my head? How does it affect my eyes? So you're kind of investigating the results of a lot of thought. And you have to be kind to yourself. How to weaken and soften these habits of overly focused and being determined. Um, I love you. I've always loved you. I would always love, probably would, to some extent. So it's all of us, I think, have like one or two major structural patterns that we suffer from. For mine, it was very much fear and self-consciousness. Others, it's different kinds. And then the way they manifest in the world is manifold. So fear can manifest in all kinds of ways and all kinds of circumstances, but it's still fear, still the basic energy of fear. So this person, that's the basic energy. So whatever the social dynamic is, doesn't matter. You kind of get you get into the groove of knowing, oh, tension feels this way, and making that your teacher. It's not your enemy. If you make these things your enemy, then it's not going to work. It's got to be your Ajahn. So it's Ajahn tension. How would you say that in Thai? How do you say tension in Thai? Kriyat. Ajahn Kriyat. Okay. Yeah. How can I? How can we deal with separation fear of the inevitable loss or death of significant others and living in isolation peacefully? Seems to be about the future, doesn't it? So the future's unknown, and the unknown is fearful. If you imagine, that, like, if you took a real heavy death meditation, you really went for it now. You're all going to die. We're all going to be alone. There's no one going to be around to take care of me. You can get very frightened. So that's thought, thinking about the future. So when thought starts to think about the future and you have a tendency towards fear, well, you'll have more fear. That's the way it's going to be because you don't know. And I might say, well, you're a good person. You'll have friends. You'll be fine. You'll be, and then you'll think, yeah, but they might all die. And you're right. Yeah, they might all die. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I get it. But, so that's what the thinking mind's going to do. But what we're doing is present moment reality. So in the same way as with this person, you see that the thoughts of the separation anxiety that you have, inevitable loss, are thought patterns based on future possibilities, but they're driven by a mood. Same thing, isn't it? So the thought patterns indicate a question. What's the mood now? And that's what Luangpor means by self arom. Check out the mood of the mind before it goes to thought. So you find yourself lost in, oh yeah, what's going to happen? My partner's going to die, and my kids are in Antarctica, so I'll never, or whatever. and and then the meditator says, oh, thinking is this way, and it's fearful thinking. I wonder what fearful feels like in the present moment. So it's always present moment awareness. So you're back to the present moment and knowing the mood of the mind. Then you can feel the body. Then when it goes off into papancha again, pundanging again and again, okay, there's the thinking. Where is it in the body? So this is why we emphasize body meditation so much in Buddhism, because it's the way you can know these things without repressing them, but also without indulging in them. If I feel fear and I don't get lost in the thoughts, but I feel in the body, then it processes itself according to nature. The body's an excellent place for learning. It's the only place really. Um, so it's the same idea. The thinking mind, if you believe in it, you'll be lost in those. If you try to get rid of it, that won't work. You say, well, what's the think? Where is it coming from? What's the mood of the mind? What's the aramana? Oh, this is fear. Fear feels this way. Okay, now you're objective. Feels this way. And then you kind of get more and more familiar with the bodily feeling of this, in this case, fear. You just know it. Oh, there it is here or wherever. And you bear witness to it. You bear witness to it. And then its energy isn't diluting. Fear is fear. It's not wrong. It's only diluting if you're driven by ego thoughts around fear. And then have lots of friends, be generous, because that's the best way to ensure a reasonable death, is you've got lots of friends, right? They'll all die, I know, but maybe you'll go first. Have some chance. They say, what do they say? It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to take care of an old person too. It's a lot of effort needed. So make friends. Knowing myself to be full of, this is from another person, knowing myself to be full of delusions and generally lacking confidence, I look for a litmus test in my attitudes to see if I'm heading in the right direction. Though aiming toward a goal is incorrect, the fruition of meditation practice should over time lead to greater tolerance and equanimity. Correct? I find myself less able to tolerate spending time with non-meditators and people who cannot be still or quiet. That's a lot of people. That's her words. I didn't say that. Does this mean I am getting clearer with my principles? Or is this an indication that I'm just getting crotchety, i.e., more attached to likes and dislikes? I'm also not sure that a solitary path is healthy or advisable. Please help me through my obfuscations. Okay, so knowing myself to be full of delusions and generally lacking confidence is a statement of delusion. Am I? If you've been listening to what I'm saying. So let's say I lose my hearing. Uh, and then in the loss of my hearing, I then become confused and frightened. I could say, I can't hear and I'm confused. Or I could say that not being able to hear is like this. And I could say, maybe, I could say, being anxious is like this. And it's a whole different statement, isn't it? One is awareness of anxiety, causally conditioned. The other is, I'm nervous. I'm afraid. How am I going to function? I can't hear. I'm not going to get anywhere. Is attachment. So when the person says, knowing myself to be full of delusion and generally lacking confidence, I would say, can you look at the lack of confidence as an object? I know it's hard because the self-identity is now so embedded in, I don't have confidence, I'm no good at this, I can't really do this. And the feeding of that as a reality means that does become a reality. It's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. So how do you break out of that? Same idea. The thinking mind is driven by a mood. The mood is not known. So if there were thoughts of, I don't know what the person defines as full of delusions, it's probably just some ideal that they have. But let's say if we were to define the lack of confidence as self-disparagement, okay, maybe that's how lack of confidence manifests for this person. Then I'm a terrible meditator. I'm not getting anywhere, and I've been at this for at least 6 months or whatever. And then that is an object. So can I now what I would say to this person, can you investigate what the lack of confidence as an aramana, as a mood of the mind, rather than as a self-identification? That's always the nature of non-attachment. Non-attachment is disentangling from the self-identity of, in this case, the mood. It's not saying that the mood should be different. So I would say the person should make an adhitthana, make a determination to investigate the feeling of lacking confidence. Because the person can define that. They have a definition. Okay, look at it. What is it like? Where is it in the body? And that determination has to be made a lot because the delusion of the attachment will be a lot. So you have to, every morning, you say, okay, my work today is to try to notice the feeling of a lack of confidence objectively. I will try to say to myself, oh, this is what lack of confidence feels like. So you start to bring out a language of awareness, basically. And you can see how difficult, because the person, we tend to believe these things as our identities and our realities, but it's not. They're just conditioned sankharas from culture, society, and who knows where. I look for a litmus test in my attitudes to see if I'm heading in the right direction. Though aiming towards a goal is incorrect, then don't do it. It's like this kind of, this is not right, but I'm doing it. Teacher, let them don't do it. Though aiming toward a goal is incorrect, the fruition of meditation practice should over time lead to greater tolerance and equanimity, correct? I find myself less able to tolerate spending time with non-meditators and people who cannot be still or quiet. That's a lot of people. So why does everyone have to be like you? I'd say to that, why does everyone have to adapt to your needs? Why is your approval dependent on them being still and quiet? I mean, that's pretty conceited, isn't it? I'm the meditator. I'm still and quiet. Shut up. You have to adapt to me because I'm the meditator. I'm almost an arahant. I don't want to be cruel, but isn't that what this is saying? silly people who are not still and quiet and watch television and put on makeup all the time or whatever they do and wear high heels and da 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 da. They're silly. That's ego. That's ego. So you start to look at the conceit of, well, why can't you just like be with someone who's not still and quiet? Having said that, I'd probably run away too. But if you're practicing the end of suffering, huh, rather than a perfect society, you better get a hold of that, right? If you don't get a hold of that, you're gonna go nuts. So then the practice becomes looking at aversion to people who are not still and quiet, and the conceit that you you're an inferior person, you're noisy, because it's very conceited, isn't it? It seems to me, or frightened or whatever. Does this mean I'm getting clear with my principles? No, you're attached to it. You're attached to some idea of how people should be. And that is a lot of suffering. By not holding to fixed views, the pure hearted one, having clarity of vision, is not born again into this world. That's an interesting line in the Metta Sutta. By not holding to fixed views. My fixed view is you're an idiot. I'm sorry. That is not a nice place to hang out. Huh? And that's a kind of a viewpoint. Then the other viewpoint is um, I am crotchety. And that has some truth to it, I think you could say. But you don't want to take that identity either. You can take one identity, they're idiots, and the other identity is I'm an idiot. Both are identities. But if you say, I'm going to use human interaction as my meditation, I'm going to use Auntie Mary, who's fidgety and noisy, as my ajahn. I'm not going to tell her, but I'm going to use that very annoyance I have with Auntie Mary or whoever to look at, I don't like this. I don't want this. I wish she'd go away. I'm going to look at tanha. I'm looking at vibhava tanha with the very person who annoys me. Then you have a meditation. Otherwise, you just have kind of ideals. So am I getting more crotchety, i.e. more attached to likes and dislikes? Certainly, yeah. And the more you alienate yourself from other people, the more you'll be lonely. I'm also not sure that a solitary path is healthy or advisable. Who says you have to be solitary? You do, because you don't want to be with anyone who's not quiet. It's like you're just setting yourself up. Please help me through my obfuscations. You see the kind of logic here. You talk too much. I'm going to be alone. But I'm not sure a solitary path is healthy or advisable. I'm just like logically kind of confused. So you can be alone, but you can be with people. You have to learn how to do both, don't you? If people are toxic, they're immoral, and so on, then you have to protect yourself. Luangpor Cha would say to kind of like if we were working, he said, work with the people you dislike. Don't always work with the monks you like. That was quite wise. I try not. You don't want any friction, but so there is a kind of preciousness among meditators. It's the preciousness with a shh, quiet. I'm precious. You be quiet. I don't like that myself, because it's kind of, is meditation a kind of dumbing down of life experience, or is it not just being open, being aware, being compassionate, being able to laugh and so on and so forth? To me, it's a kind of a freedom, right? Rather than a kind of control. Oh, quiet, quiet. I'm doing metta bhavana, shut up. That's a classic. So, some thoughts. Uh, I'm in a jolly mood. It must have been the fruit juice. One more. I think one more. Yeah. That's it. I want to give you something. Where? How can we know who is Kalyanamitta or the right teachers? How could Luangpor know at the beginning that Luangpor Cha was the right Ajahn? Who could lead to the right path for Luangpor? Had Luangpor ever felt doubt about his credentials? He had a degree, his credentials, or trustworthiness back then. And how can this process unfolded in the mind of the followers? Well, you just had to meet Luangpor Cha and your doubts went. You didn't ask for a certificate. But that aside, um, I was always into independent. I never expected anyone to get enlightened for me. I didn't expect, I mean, I came to Thailand to be a monk to try to figure out how to be peaceful. Everything else was extra bonus, a lot of bonus. I didn't expect so much kindness, such a beautiful society, fabulous teachers, Kaunio, and so on and so forth. It was all extra. It was all bonus, bonus, bonus. So I never really felt that um, I never ordained for a teacher. I didn't ordain because of Ajahn Chah, or I didn't even ordain to be a Buddhist. I ordained to be free from suffering. And that was always my responsibility. So I'm not, you know, I didn't, I didn't become monk to be a Buddhist. What's the point of that? That's just an identity. I'm a Buddhist. You're a Catholic. Yeah, yeah. It makes no sense to me. I use Buddhism as my vehicle for transcending the idea that I am anything. You know? Like, otherwise, it's just another identity, another social identity. I love Buddhism. I'm grateful to the Buddha and so on, but you don't ordain you don't even ordain to be a monk, really. You're ordained for Nibbana. That's in the Upasambhada chanting is you ordain for the realization of Nibbana. You don't ordain, I ordain to be a Buddhist. It's not in there. Like a Buddhist catechism or something, or I ordain to be a bhikkhu. No, you don't. You ordain for the realization of Nibbana. So my my own aspiration was very much, I've got to sort this out. No one's going to do this for me. And if someone helps me, to thank you. And someone feeds me, wow, really? You're going to feed Antonio? And so that was all extra. So I've always been quite independent in that way. Foolish, deluded, and all of that, struggling, pit pen crew kind of stuff. And my teachers were really helpful, but my teachers pushed me away too, not in a violent way. Luangpor Cha made me go to branch monasteries constantly. I hated it. The first Vasa, I've been at Wat Pah Pong maybe, and I'm a Samanera. I've been there maybe 3 months, 4 months, just kind of getting into the groove. And Luangpor Cha on his birthday would have a gathering at his kuti, and there were very few branch monasteries, but many monks would be at his kuti in June, and the abbots of the monasteries, I think there were like 10, maybe 10 monasteries, something like that. And then, they would talk business. I never knew what they were talking about. And then Luangpor Cha would ask, Luangpor John, you want some farangs? Is this from a cow or something? So he sends me off to Tam Sang Pet. Oh. And I've got like 10 minutes to pack. Not that I had anything. You're off. Okay. Go to Tumsang Pit. Spend the Vasa there. Have my seizure. Very nice. Pansa. First Pansa. Come back for Lompo's birthday. I said, Lompo, could I just stay at Wapapong? He looks at me. Okay. I go back to Tumsang Pit. I come back to Wapapong 3 months later. He says to me, why did you leave? You, you mean I could have stayed? He didn't give me an answer. I asked him. I thought, no answer. Okay, back to prison. Yeah. So it was, and then finally, I kind of wanted to go. I wanted to go to what Nana Chant was starting. First year Nana Chant. I wanted to be with Ajahn Sumedho. I wanted to talk English, and I wanted to drink coffee. So I wanted to be with the friends. So they go, Paul, can I please go to this? Why? What's wrong with me? So then he had me sewing ropes. I was sewing sangatis for other monks or something. And another one. And then finally, I said, Luangpor, can I please go to, the punch is going to start. All right, go. So but you got to finish the ropes. All right. So now I've got all this rope cloth and I've got to walk from Wapapong to Nanachan. So I walked to Nanachan. 5 minutes later, he arrives in the car. And he enjoyed this. Anyway, so how could Lompa know? Yeah. So that was So to me, it's like if you suffer, you've got to figure it out. No one's going to do it for you. And that kind of integrity, suffering is like this. How can you sort out my suffering? Lompa Cha couldn't. He could help, but basically, you have to figure it out yourself. So, um, seeking security in other people. How can I know what Kalyanamitta or right teaches? Well, Kalyanamitta, people keep precepts. They give you good advice. One of the things that Kalyanamitta, they share their secrets. That's an interesting one. Where if I'm down, I'll I'll talk with you about it, but if you're down, you'll talk with me about it. They share their secrets. There's something about that, isn't there? That kind of intimacy of oh yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah. And that's difficult. There's that. Um, yeah, someone you can communicate with, someone who doesn't uh, identify your problem through self-view. That would be important. So let's say I'm angry at another monk and I'm talking to someone who I think is my Kalyanamitta, and he says, "You're absolutely right. That monk's a creep," and we basically get to gossip about him. That's not a Kalyanamitta. Yeah, that's someone just reinforcing wrong view. And we all do that. That's unfortunate with our Kalyanamitta. But in an ideal world, you're, you're, I'm complaining about the other monk, and my Kalyanamitta says, "Yeah, it feels painful. Huh? Yeah, like you get a lot of stress from that." Yeah, I've had problems with him too, but like we're like, do you want to kill him? Or like, what about your breathing? So that the Kalyanamitta brings you back to your body, brings you back to more awareness of the problem. Because Kalyanamitta also sometimes, the word venting. Venting is like you have to get something out, and that happens. But if a person is using you as a constant venting machine, forget it. That's they're just using you. So that there is that in human relationships, but then the Kalyanamitta takes you back to Dhamma rather than it's a really interesting gossip. Um, and that's for teachers. Teachers have a huge responsibility, huge. So a teacher has to, really guard their disciples. So the teacher has to have the integrity of confidentiality. When a student comes to a teacher, the teacher has to know this is between us. This isn't for public consumption. That's very, very important. So if you have a teacher who then doesn't keep confidentiality in a way where you lose trust, then be very careful, very, very careful. The teacher has to bring you to Dhamma. Teacher has to be a good listener. So if you find someone who's just giving you advice without listening to you, well, you might as well read a book, how to be a better Buddhist, that kind of thing. That's so, someone that can really kind of suss you out and say, kind of wait and observe and then get a feeling for you and then maybe offer this work or that work. So you develop a relationship with a teacher. And that's very helpful. So Luangpor Cha, he watched us. He was very observant. And then he would offer reflection from. So for each of us Farangs, he spoke in different ways at different times, obviously, because he's a good teacher. Sometimes he'd be brusque, sometimes he'd be very forgiving or whatever it was. So the guru-chela relationship, the teacher-disciple relationship in Theravada isn't as strong as it is in Indian philosophy, or even in Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism, you take refuge with your teacher for a lifetime. It's a fourth refuge. Ours is much more, probably less defined, but that the teacher keeps sila, and you can trust the teacher, and so on. That's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. Um, who is the right teacher? Well, you're the best teacher of yourself. You can only know. If I give you some advice and it doesn't work, is that my fault? Yes and no. My fault as well. I thought it would work. I thought the out breath might be good for you. And you said, well, give me a stomach ache. Well, don't do it. I'm doing my best. So the teacher's only, he's just giving it a shot. How many teachers are going to read your mind? 1 in 1,000,000? Okay, 2 in 1,000,000. So the idea that the teacher said, okay, I know what's exactly going on in this guy's head. I don't know that. We read body language. We know character over time. We're intuitive. Something comes out intuitively. But you always have to say, well, he might be wrong. And that's okay. So the teacher says, try something. And you intuitively say, no, I don't think that's going to work. That's fine. And that's where your own wisdom